My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 29 years old. And the strange thing about discovering the person you plan to marry is capable of betraying you is that your heart usually knows before your mind has proof. It starts quietly. A phone turned face down. A laugh cut short when you walk into the room. A password changed without explanation. A person who used to leave their whole life open beside you, suddenly guarding every screen like it holds state secrets. That was Ryan. Ryan Cole. 27 years old. My fiancé. The man I had loved for 4 years. The man I had said yes to 8 months earlier, standing under a string of patio lights while my mother cried into a napkin and his parents clapped like they had been waiting for that moment as much as we had. Our wedding was set for next spring. Venue booked. Photographer deposit paid. Save the dates designed, but not mailed yet. From the outside, our life looked normal. Not perfect, but real. We had inside jokes, grocery lists, favorite takeout places, arguments about laundry, quiet Sundays, and a future I thought we were building, brick by brick. Then, about 6 weeks before everything fell apart, Ryan changed. Not dramatically. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But I noticed. He started texting late at night, with his phone tilted away from me. He started putting it face down, even when he went to the bathroom. He bought new cologne, suddenly cared about shirts he had ignored for years, and began going out with the guys 3 times a week. When I asked who was going, he sighed like I had insulted him. God, Claire, you're so insecure sometimes. That sentence became his shield. Every question I asked bounced off it. Every concern I had turned into evidence that I was controlling. So I started doubting myself. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe wedding stress was making me strange. Maybe love, after 4 years, meant trusting someone even when your stomach twisted every time their phone lit up. Then I saw Tinder on his phone. Not hidden. Not buried. Right there on the screen when he unlocked it beside me on the couch. I stared at the little flame icon like it had burned a hole straight through my chest. Why do you have Tinder? I asked. Ryan looked at the phone, then at me. For half a second, his face went blank. Then he laughed. My friend Jake wanted help with his profile. On your phone? He logged in for a second. Relax. But he wasn't relaxed. His jaw tightened. His thumb locked the screen too fast. And when I kept looking at him, he snapped. Are you seriously going through my phone now? I didn't go through anything. I saw the app. Same thing. It wasn't. We both knew it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Ryan lay beside me, breathing evenly, one arm thrown over his face, looking peaceful in a way that felt almost cruel. I stared at the ceiling and thought about the wedding deposits. The dress appointment my mother had already booked. The vows I had been writing in my notes app. The life I was about to legally tie myself to. And then I did something I never imagined I would do. I created a fake dating profile. I used photos of an old college friend who had moved overseas years earlier. She was beautiful in that effortless way people always claim they don't notice, but absolutely do. Polished, confident, the kind of woman who looked like she belonged in rooftop bars and airport lounges. I named her Madison. Made her 28. A marketing consultant. Traveled often. Owned a condo downtown. Liked wine bars, weekend trips, and men who know what they want. Everything Ryan had recently started hinting that I wasn't. Because money had become a topic between us. Not openly at first. Just comments. Little cuts. Must be nice when his coworker's girlfriend got taken to Napa. Some people actually enjoy life when I said we should save instead of going to an expensive restaurant. You're always so practical. When my mom used a coupon at dinner. I made decent money as a project coordinator. $68,000 a year. Not rich, but stable. I paid my bills. I saved. I didn't believe romance had to come with a luxury receipt. Apparently, Ryan did. I set Madison's profile to Ryan's age range and location. Then I swiped right. 4 minutes later, we matched. 4 minutes. His first message appeared while I was still holding my breath. Finally, a woman who looks like she actually has her life together. I put the phone down on the kitchen counter and just stood there. The apartment was silent, except for the refrigerator humming. Some part of me had wanted the test to fail. I wanted to feel stupid. I wanted to delete the fake profile and crawl into bed beside Ryan and whisper an apology he would never know he deserved. But the message was real. And worse, he kept going. For 3 days, I became Madison. Ryan flirted like he had been waiting for permission. He sent gym selfies. Asked what kind of car Madison drove. Asked what her condo looked like. Asked if she liked traveling. Then, slowly, he started talking about me. I'm technically engaged, he wrote, but honestly, it's complicated. I stared at the word technically until it blurred. Madison asked, complicated how? Ryan replied almost immediately. She's sweet, but boring. Works this dead-end office job energy. Always worried about money. We never do anything fun unless it's cheap. My throat tightened. Then came another message. I'm only 27. I don't want to wake up at 40 and realize I settled. Settled. 4 years of loving him. 4 years of supporting him through career changes, family fights, bad moods, unpaid bills, and the months he swore he was figuring himself out. And I was what he called settling. Madison wrote, that sounds frustrating. Ryan answered, it is. And don't even get me started on our private life. She acts like routine is romance. I stopped reading for a minute. Not because the sentence was the worst thing he said, but because it was so casual. So easy. Like I wasn't a person. Like I was a story he could bend to impress a stranger. Then came the message that ended something inside me. Honestly, I'm mostly still with her because the wedding is already planned and our parents put down deposits. But if I met the right woman before then... He added eyes. Just eyes. As if betrayal could be cute. Madison asked, what would you do? Ryan wrote, probably break it off. Life's too short to settle. Plus, her family is kind of embarrassing anyway. Her mom still uses coupons at restaurants. My mother used coupons because she raised me alone after my father died. Because she worked double shifts and still somehow made birthdays feel magical. Because being careful with money was not shameful. It was survival. I screenshotted everything. Every message. Every selfie. Every insult. Every little proof that the man sleeping beside me had been auditioning for a life where I was the punchline. Then I made the date. Madison suggested dinner Thursday night at 7. An upscale Italian restaurant Ryan had mentioned for months. The same place I once said was too expensive for a regular dinner. Ryan responded instantly. Finally, a woman who doesn't think Olive Garden is romance. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because if I didn't laugh, I was afraid I would break something. That afternoon, I called his parents. His father answered. Claire, everything okay? His voice was warm, familiar. That made it worse. I need to talk to you and Linda about something important, I said. Can you meet me Thursday at 7? What happened? Is Ryan okay? He's fine physically, I said, gripping the phone so tightly my fingers hurt. But there's something you both need to see. There was a pause. Then his voice changed. Steady. Serious. Where? I gave him the restaurant name. Told them to arrive at 6:45. I didn't tell them everything. Not yet. Because some truths need to be seen before they can be believed. Thursday came slowly. All day, Ryan acted normal. He kissed my cheek before leaving. Told me he had plans with Jake. Said he might be home late. I looked at him standing in our doorway, freshly shaved, wearing the shirt I bought him for his birthday. And for one strange second, I remembered the night he proposed. The way his hands shook. The way he said, "You're my home, Claire." I wondered which version of him had been real. Then I realized something colder. Maybe both had been. Maybe that was the problem. At 6:30, I arrived at the restaurant. Table for 4. Under Madison's name. Ryan's parents arrived at 6:42. His mother looked worried. His father looked like a man preparing himself for bad news. What's going on? Linda asked. I placed my phone on the table between us. Please read, I said. And as they leaned in, the first crack appeared in the life Ryan thought he could keep hidden. Ryan's father read the messages in complete silence. That scared me more than yelling would have. His face barely moved at first, just a tightening around the mouth, a stillness settling over him so heavily it seemed to pull the air out of the restaurant. Beside him, Linda kept shaking her head. "No," she whispered. "No, Ryan wouldn't." Then she reached the screenshots about my mother. The coupon comment. The messages about leaving me for someone wealthier. The complaints about my body, my personality, my small life. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. I sat across from them, feeling strangely detached from my own body. Like I was watching another woman live through the collapse of her future. A waitress approached carefully. "Can I start anyone with drinks?" "No," Richard said flatly. The waitress disappeared almost instantly. He continued reading. Every swipe across the screen seemed to age him. By the time he reached the messages arranging dinner, disgust had fully replaced disbelief. "He actually said this?" Linda asked softly. "Yes." "And he thought this woman was real?" "Yes." Richard finally looked up at me. "You created the profile?" "I did." He nodded once. Not approving. Not condemning. Just understanding. Then he asked the question I had been asking myself for 3 sleepless nights. "Were you hoping he'd stop?" My throat tightened unexpectedly. Because, yes, that was the horrible part. Some tiny, pathetic, hopeful piece of me had wanted Ryan to recognize temptation and choose me anyway. Wanted him to say, "Sorry, I'm engaged. This is inappropriate." Instead, he had matched in 4 minutes. "Yeah," I admitted quietly. "I think part of me hoped I was wrong." Linda's eyes filled immediately. "Oh, sweetheart." Before I could respond, the hostess near the entrance straightened. A familiar laugh drifted across the restaurant. "Ryan." I turned instinctively, and there he was. Perfect. Painfully perfect. Dark button-down shirt. Watch I bought him last Christmas. Hair styled carefully. That confident smile I used to think meant he was happy to see me. Except tonight, it was meant for another woman. Not me. He followed the hostess toward the table casually at first, scanning the room with easy anticipation. Then he saw me. Everything stopped. The smile vanished so fast it was almost violent. His body physically jerked backward. And then he saw his parents. Color drained from his face. For one frozen second, nobody moved. The hostess looked between all of us, confused. "Is everything okay?" "Perfect," I said calmly. Ryan looked like he couldn't breathe. "What the hell is this?" His voice cracked on the last word. Richard spoke without raising his tone. "Sit down." I had never heard that voice from him before. Not loud. Not emotional. Just absolute. Ryan glanced toward the exit. I honestly think he considered running. But the restaurant was crowded. People were already looking over. And shame works fastest when there's nowhere to hide. Slowly, Ryan sat. "What is going on?" he asked again, though now his voice sounded smaller. I picked up my phone. "Well," I said softly, "I thought maybe everyone should hear what you really think about your boring fiancé." His eyes snapped to my phone. Understanding hit him all at once. The fake profile. Madison. The dinner. Me. You... Oh, she figured it out, Richard interrupted coldly. Ryan stared at me in horror. "You catfished me?" The word came out louder than he intended. A couple at the next table glanced over immediately. I held his gaze. "You matched with her in 4 minutes. That's not the point." "No?" I asked. "Then what is the point, Ryan?" Linda was crying quietly now. Not dramatic crying. The devastated kind. The kind mothers do when reality finally breaks through denial. I unlocked my phone. "Maybe we should all hear it together." Ryan shifted forward instantly. "Claire, don't." I ignored him. I started reading aloud. Finally, a woman who looks like she actually has her life together. Ryan closed his eyes. I kept going. "She works this dead-end office job life and worries about money all the time." Linda inhaled sharply. "Ryan, it was just..." I raised my voice slightly over him. "I don't want to wake up at 40 and realize I settled." His face twisted. People nearby were openly listening now. Forks paused midair. A man near the bar actually turned his chair toward us. "Still," I continued, "because for 3 days, I had read those messages alone. Now he could hear them too. And don't even get me started on our private life. Claire, Ryan hissed, stop. No, Richard said firmly. Let her finish. I read the line about my mother. The coupons. The embarrassing family. The plans to leave me if he found someone richer. By the end, Ryan looked physically ill. Not guilty. Exposed. There's a difference. Finally, Linda spoke through tears. You said those things about her? Ryan looked at his mother desperately. It was venting. Venting? Richard repeated. Ryan latched onto the word like a lifeline. Yes, exactly. People vent. It didn't mean anything. I laughed softly. Not because it was funny. Because the alternative was crying in front of everyone. You agreed to meet another woman while wearing the engagement ring I bought you. It wasn't real. You thought she was. That shut him up. Silence crashed down between us. Then Ryan straightened suddenly, anger rushing in where panic had been. This is insane, he snapped. You trapped me. There it was. The pivot. Not remorse. Not accountability. Blame. You invaded my privacy, he said louder now, desperate to regain control. You manipulated me. You set this whole thing up to humiliate me. Richard's hand hit the table hard enough to rattle the silverware. Not explosive. Controlled. Which somehow felt worse. Do not, he said quietly. Sit there and pretend you're the victim. Ryan froze. His father leaned forward. You were planning to cheat on your fiancé. I didn't actually cheat. You arranged a date. It was just dinner. With a woman you thought was wealthy and attractive, while insulting Claire the entire time. Ryan opened his mouth again. Richard cut him off. You embarrassed yourself. She simply showed us who you are. The waitress approached again, carefully, clearly regretting every life decision that led her to our table. Should I give everyone a few more minutes? We won't be staying, I said. I stood slowly. My legs felt strangely weak. Ryan looked up immediately. Claire, wait. That almost broke me. Because his voice sounded real again, like the Ryan I loved. Not the stranger from the messages. Not the man chasing fantasy women online. Just Ryan. The problem with loving someone for years is that your heart remembers versions of them your brain is trying to bury. But then I looked at my phone. At the screenshots. At Linda crying. At Richard staring at his son like he no longer recognized him. And something inside me settled. Calmly. Permanently. We're done, I said. Ryan blinked hard. What? The engagement is over. You can't just decide that right now. I can, I replied. And honestly, you decided it first. That's not fair. I almost smiled at that. Fair. As though fairness had survived the moment he called me boring to a stranger. I'll pack your things, I continued. You can come get them this weekend. His panic deepened instantly. Claire, come on, you're overreacting. Richard let out a sound of disbelief. Overreacting? Ryan looked around the restaurant, suddenly aware of all the eyes on us. Humiliation was finally landing. Not because he hurt me, because other people knew. That was the moment I truly understood him. Ryan could survive guilt. What he couldn't survive was embarrassment. Linda wiped her eyes. How long? She whispered. How long have you been talking to women online? It was only her, he insisted immediately. I swear. I noticed he didn't say Madison. Because somewhere deep down, even now, he still couldn't fully separate the fantasy woman from me. I turned toward his parents. I'm sorry you had to find out like this. Linda shook her head instantly. No, don't apologize. You didn't do this. Richard stood beside me. For a second, I thought he might hug me. Instead, he simply nodded. And somehow, that hurt even more. You deserved better than this, he said quietly. Ryan stood abruptly. So that's it? Everyone's just against me now? No, I said softly. Everyone's reacting to your choices. You manipulated the situation. You had every opportunity to say no. His mouth open. Closed. Opened again. Nothing came out. because there was no defense left. I reached into my purse and pulled out my engagement ring. For 1 second, Ryan's eyes locked onto it.
Panic.
Real panic. I placed it gently on the table. The tiny diamond caught the restaurant lighting and flashed once between us. A final little sparkle before dying. "I loved you," I said quietly. That sentence finally shattered him. Because unlike everything else that night, he knew that part was true. His eyes reddened immediately. "Claire, but you loved the idea that someone better might still come along." I stepped back. "And someday," I added, "you're going to realize what you threw away for attention from a fake profile." Then I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Linda start crying harder. Heard Richard say something low and furious. Heard Ryan call my name once. Only once. I didn't look back. Outside, the night air hit my face cold and sharp. My hands shook so badly I could barely unlock my car. And then, sitting alone in the driver's seat with the restaurant lights glowing behind me, I finally cried. Not delicate tears. Not movie tears. The kind that hurt. The kind pulled from somewhere deep and exhausted. Because 4 years had just ended inside a crowded Italian restaurant while strangers listened between bites of pasta. And despite everything, part of me still wished none of it had been true. That night felt endless. By the time I got home, my phone was vibrating so constantly it sounded mechanical. Ryan. Ryan again. Ryan again. Voicemails, texts, paragraphs, missed calls stacked on top of each other like collapsing dominoes. At first, I ignored them. Then curiosity won. Big mistake. "How could you do this to me? You humiliated me in front of everyone. You made me look insane. You trapped me." Not one message began with, "I'm sorry." That told me everything. Then came the next wave. His friends, mostly men I tolerated rather than liked. "Pretty psycho move, Claire. Public humiliation is abuse, by the way. You could have just talked to him." One message actually read, "Every guy flirts online. Chill." I stared at that sentence for a long moment before blocking the number, because apparently loyalty had become optional now. Around midnight, Linda texted me. Not defending him, not minimizing anything, just this. "I am so deeply sorry. I truly didn't know." 5 minutes later, Richard sent one too. "You did the right thing. Painful, but right." That one nearly made me cry again, because validation from his father somehow mattered more than I expected. Maybe because Richard had always been honest in a way Ryan wasn't. Ryan twisted truth depending on what served him emotionally. Richard never did. At 1:17 a.m., Ryan sent another text. "You didn't have to destroy my relationship with my parents, too," I finally responded. "You destroyed it yourself when you decided strangers were more important than honesty." Then I blocked him. 23 unread messages disappeared into silence. The apartment felt unfamiliar after that. Not empty. Haunted. Every object carried a memory now. The couch where we planned our honeymoon. The coffee mugs from our trip to Seattle. His hoodie hanging on the chair, like he might walk back in any second and say this had all spiraled too far. I barely slept. By Friday morning, something inside me had hardened. Not bitterness. Clarity. I changed the locks before noon. The lease was only in my name. Ryan had always insisted on keeping his own apartment, just in case. At the time, he framed it as smart financial planning. Now, it sounded more like someone leaving himself an exit door. The locksmith finished around 11. As the deadbolt clicked into place, I felt a strange wave of relief. Like my nervous system had finally exhaled. Then I started packing his things. At first, I tried to be respectful. Folded shirts neatly, wrapped his gaming console carefully, separated important documents. But halfway through boxing up his closet, I found the shirt he wore to the restaurant still draped over a chair. I just stared at it. That stupid dark blue shirt. The one I once told him made his eyes look softer. Suddenly, I remembered him buttoning it in our bathroom mirror before leaving for his date, kissing my forehead afterward, lying effortlessly. My chest tightened so violently, I had to sit down. People always talk about betrayal like it's one giant dramatic moment. It isn't. It's hundreds of tiny memories becoming poisoned all at once. By evening, nearly everything he owned sat stacked near the door. Then Saturday morning happened. At 8:56 a.m., someone pounded on my apartment door, hard enough to rattle the frame. I already knew who it was before opening it. Sophie, Ryan's best friend, perfect hair, designer sunglasses, the kind of woman who weaponized outrage like a personality trait. The second I opened the door, she stormed inside without invitation. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I closed the door slowly. "Good morning to you too." "She's devastated." I blinked. "She?" Sophie rolled her eyes dramatically. "You know what I mean. Ryan is a mess." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because hearing Ryan described like a wounded victim after what he'd done felt surreal. You should have thought about that before arranging dates with strangers. You catfished him! And he cheated on me. He didn't cheat. He showed up to dinner hoping to impress another woman while insulting his fiancé. Sophie crossed her arms. People flirt online. It's not the same thing. Would Ryan think it was harmless if I did it? Silence. There it was, the answer. He was venting, she snapped instead. Men talk. I stared at her. Do you hear yourself? You embarrassed him in front of his parents. No, I said quietly. I exposed him in front of his parents. That shut her up for exactly 2 seconds. You destroyed his relationship with them. No, his behavior did. Sophie scoffed. You know what your problem is? You always had to be morally superior. That one hit unexpectedly hard, because there was a time I would have spent hours wondering if she was right. A time I would have apologized just to stop conflict. But betrayal changes your relationship with self-doubt. You can leave now, I said calmly. Her expression sharpened. You really think you're innocent in all this? I think I deserved honesty. She muttered something under her breath, involving the word crazy, then slammed the door behind her. An hour later, another message arrived. Unknown number. This is Emma, Ryan's sister. Fantastic. You're a disgusting person for what you did. I stared at the screen, then replied, Your brother called me boring and broke while arranging a date with another woman. 3 dots appeared instantly. He made a mistake. No, he made choices. You trapped him. I gave him opportunity after opportunity to be loyal. He never physically cheated. I typed carefully this time. If your future husband downloaded Tinder, insulted you to strangers, and agreed to meet another woman in secret, would you marry him? No response. A full minute passed. Then, you still handled it cruelly. Maybe I did. That thought lingered longer than I wanted, because cruelty and consequences sometimes wear similar faces, depending on where you're standing. But then I remembered Ryan mocking my mother. Remembered him calling our relationship settling. Remembered how easily he lied while kissing my forehead. And the guilt faded again. Sunday afternoon, Richard called. His voice sounded tired. She wants to pick up her things today. Linda and I will come too. She? He paused, then gave a small, exhausted sigh. Sorry, habit. Ryan's been crying in this house for 2 days straight. I closed my eyes briefly. That hurt more than I expected. Not enough to change anything, just enough to remind me I still loved him somewhere underneath the wreckage. 3 o'clock works, I said quietly. They arrived exactly on time. Richard drove. Linda sat stiffly in the passenger seat. Ryan climbed out of the back seat slowly. The sight of him startled me. He looked awful. Not cinematic heartbreak awful, real awful. Unshaven, eyes swollen, gray hoodie wrinkled like he'd slept in it. For a split second, instinct screamed at me to comfort him. 4 years of habit don't disappear overnight. But then he looked at me, and immediately looked away. Shame. Not grief. Shame. I stepped aside silently so they could enter. The apartment felt unbearably tense. Boxes lined the hallway like evidence. Ryan moved toward them quietly. Linda hugged me unexpectedly. actually hugged me. "I'm so sorry," she whispered into my hair. "We didn't raise him like this." I swallowed hard. "Yes, you did." She pulled back, startled. Then I softened. "I mean, you raised someone capable of better than this." Tears filled her eyes immediately again. Richard shook my hand firmly. "For what it's worth," he said, "I think you showed remarkable restraint." Ryan let out a sharp laugh from across the room. "Restraint?" Richard turned slowly. "Yes." "She humiliated me publicly." "You humiliated yourself privately first." The silence after that felt lethal. Ryan picked up another box, harder than necessary. "I said I was sorry." "No," I replied quietly. "You said I embarrassed you." His jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "There's that word again." He finally looked at me directly, and for one terrifying second, I saw the version of him I almost married. Soft-eyed, vulnerable, human. "I messed up," he said quietly. "Okay, I know that now." The apartment became painfully still, because part of me had waited to hear those words all week. But they arrived too late, and worse, they still sounded incomplete. Not, "I betrayed you," not, "I broke your trust," just, "I messed up." Like forgetting an anniversary, like backing into someone's mailbox, not dismantling a future. "You said you were staying with me because deposits had already been paid," I said softly. "Do you understand what that did to me?" Ryan rubbed his face hard. "I was talking big to impress someone you thought was richer than me." He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Linda sat down suddenly, like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. "Oh, Ryan." He looked at his mother helplessly. "I didn't mean any of it." I gave a sad little smile. "That's almost worse." His eyes narrowed in confusion. "Because if you meant it, at least you were honest somewhere." That landed. I could see it. The realization moving across his face slowly, painfully. He stepped toward me then, instinctively, like maybe proximity could undo damage. "I love you, Claire." My chest physically hurt hearing that, because I believed him. And somehow, that made everything even uglier. Love without respect is still destruction. "I know," I whispered. His face crumpled immediately. "But not enough." He stopped moving after that, like something inside him finally understood this was real. Not a fight, not a temporary separation. The end. Richard cleared his throat quietly. "Load the car, son." Ryan stood motionless for another second, then nodded once. Small, defeated. As he carried the last box out, he paused at the door, turned back toward me. "I really am sorry." This time, it sounded genuine. And that almost ruined me, because if he had been cruel, I could have hated him cleanly. Instead, he was weak, selfish, lost. A man who wanted validation badly enough to burn down his own future for it. And somehow that felt sadder. After they drove away, I stood alone in the apartment for a long time. The silence afterward was enormous. Not peaceful yet, just empty. But somewhere underneath the grief, I could feel something else beginning. Freedom. Monday morning, I went to work determined to act normal. That was the goal. Normal. Coffee. Emails. Meetings. Pretend my life hadn't detonated in a restaurant 4 nights earlier. I even managed to believe it for almost 2 hours. Then my manager knocked lightly on my office door. "Claire, got a minute?" Something in his expression made my stomach drop instantly. I followed him into his office and closed the door behind me. He leaned against the desk awkwardly. "So, I got a strange phone call this morning." Cold spread through my chest. "From?" "A man claiming to be your ex-fiancé." I went completely still. "What did he say?" My manager held up a calming hand immediately. "Relax, I'm not accusing you of anything." That meant there had been accusations. "He claimed you've been harassing him. my manager continued carefully. Creating fake identities, manipulating him emotionally. He sounded pretty worked up. For a moment, I genuinely couldn't speak. Not because I was shocked Ryan would lie, because some stupid part of me still expected him to stop, eventually. To hit a line he wouldn't cross. Apparently, I still didn't fully understand him. He cheated on me, I said quietly. I caught him. I figured there was more to the story, my manager replied dryly. Relief flickered briefly. Then anger replaced it. He called my job? He tried to imply you were unstable. That word landed like a slap. Unstable. Interesting how quickly women become unstable once they stop tolerating disrespect. My manager sighed. Look, your personal life is your business, unless it affects work. I told him that and ended the call. But I wanted to warn you in case he escalates. I swallowed hard. Thank you. When I returned to my desk, my hands were shaking. Not heartbreak this time. Rage. There's a particular kind of fury that comes when someone hurts you and then tries to rewrite the story so they become the victim. Ryan wasn't just ashamed anymore. He was retaliating. At 12:14 p.m., my phone buzzed again. An email. From our wedding venue. Subject line: urgent concerns regarding contract cancellation. I opened it immediately. My pulse accelerated with every sentence. Apparently Ryan had contacted them, claiming he felt emotionally unsafe, that I had manipulated him psychologically, and that he should receive the deposits back because the engagement ended due to my controlling behavior. I actually laughed out loud in disbelief. A coworker glanced over. I apologized automatically. Then I marched outside and called the venue immediately. A woman named Denise answered. Hi, I said carefully, trying not to sound furious. I think my ex-fiancé may have given you a very distorted version of events. There was a pause. We were concerned by the allegations. He agreed to meet another woman from Tinder while engaged to me, I said flatly. I have screenshots. Silence. Then, oh. Exactly. Oh. 20 minutes later, after forwarding everything, Denise called back, sounding completely different. We've reviewed the messages, she said gently. We're very sorry for the misunderstanding. Ryan's attempt to weaponize victimhood had collapsed instantly against evidence. The venue refunded most of the deposits. Not all, but enough. Still, that wasn't what stayed with me afterward. What stayed with me was the realization that Ryan truly believed his humiliation outweighed his betrayal. That terrified me, because it meant he still didn't understand what he'd done. Or worse, he understood perfectly and just didn't care. Then came social media. Of course it did. By Tuesday morning, Ryan had posted a long Instagram story about toxic relationships, manipulative partners, and women who weaponize humiliation when they don't get their way. No names, but enough details that mutual friends immediately understood. The comments split into camps almost instantly. Some defended him. Public humiliation is abuse. Two wrongs don't make a right. Creating fake profiles is psycho behavior. Others asked uncomfortable questions. If she has screenshots, why are you leaving that part out? You downloaded Tinder while engaged? Wait, did you actually meet the fake profile? Ryan deleted those comments quickly, but not before people saw them. I didn't respond publicly. That seemed to infuriate him more, because silence denies people the fight they prepared for. Tuesday afternoon, Sophie showed up at my office building. Again. I saw her through the lobby glass while leaving for lunch and nearly turned around. She intercepted me before I could escape. This has to stop. I blinked at her. You keep saying that like I'm the one doing things. You ruined his life. No, I replied calmly. His choices ruined his life. He can barely sleep. I stared at her for a second, then said quietly, neither can I. That shut her up. Briefly. But only briefly. You didn't have to expose him publicly. I folded my arms. He publicly pursued another woman. That was private. I almost smiled at the absurdity. Interesting definition of private. Sophie looked exhausted now. Not angry. Just emotionally drained from trying to defend someone indefensible. He lost a huge client today, she admitted softly. That caught me off guard. What? Someone saw the restaurant scene. Word spread. People talk. For a moment, guilt stabbed through me. Sharp. Immediate. Because despite everything, I never actually wanted to destroy Ryan. I wanted the truth acknowledged. That's different. And Sophie saw the hesitation on my face instantly. He's falling apart, Claire. I looked away toward the street traffic. Cars moving. People laughing. The world continuing, while mine still felt split open. Then I asked quietly, "Did he ever tell you what he said about my mom?" Sophie's expression changed immediately. Tiny flicker. There it was. She knew. Claire. He mocked my mother for using coupons after she spent 20 years raising me alone. Sophie didn't answer. Did he tell you he said he settled for me? Nothing. Did he tell you he was ready to leave me for someone richer? Still silence. Because defenders love partial truths. Full truths complicate loyalty. I didn't ruin his life, I said finally. I interrupted the fantasy version where he got to betray me without consequences. Then I walked away. Wednesday night, my phone rang from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Ryan. His voice sounded rough. You think you're proud of yourself? I closed my eyes briefly. Why are you calling me? You turned everyone against me. You did that yourself. No, he snapped. You orchestrated the whole thing. I leaned against my kitchen counter. There was exhaustion in me now, deeper than anger. You downloaded Tinder, Ryan. You made a fake profile. And you matched with her. That doesn't justify humiliating me. There it was again. Humiliation. Always humiliation. Never betrayal. Never dishonesty. Never cheating. Just embarrassment. You know what's amazing? I said quietly. What? You still think the worst thing that happened was people finding out. Silence. Then, I loved you. Tears sprang to my eyes instantly. Because hearing that still hurt. Still mattered. Which felt unfair somehow. People who love you don't audition replacements behind your back. You're twisting it. No, I whispered. I finally stopped twisting it for you. He exhaled shakily. I made mistakes. Mistakes are forgetting anniversaries. That hit him hard. I could hear it. Claire. No, you don't get to soften this anymore. He went quiet. Then finally said something honest. I didn't think you'd leave. The simplicity of that sentence stunned me. Not, I didn't mean to hurt you. Not, I was selfish. Just, I didn't think you'd leave. And suddenly, everything made terrible sense. The flirting. The entitlement. The carelessness. Ryan never thought consequences applied to him. He thought I loved him enough to absorb the damage quietly. You should have, I said softly. Then I hung up. Thursday morning, my mother called me, laughing. Actual laughing. Your ex-fiancé just messaged me on Facebook. I froze. What? He told me you're emotionally unstable and manipulated him. I pressed a hand over my eyes. Oh my God. And then, she continued cheerfully, he called me low class again. That made me laugh too, despite myself. Not because it was funny. Because it was ridiculous. My mother snorted. Honey, if using coupons makes me low class, then I'll survive the insult. Then her voice softened. You okay? That question almost undid me. Because beneath the anger and chaos and logistics, I was still grieving. I miss him, I admitted quietly. The silence on the other end turned gentle immediately. Of course you do. I hate that I do. You loved him honestly, she said. There's no shame in grieving honestly, even if he didn't love honestly. Tears burned unexpectedly. God. Mothers really do know how to cut directly into your heart. Then Friday came. And with it, the final shift. Richard called. Claire, he said quietly, I need to apologize. For what? Ryan filed fake complaints against your apartment building. I sat upright immediately. What? He admitted it after Linda confronted him. I stared into space in disbelief. Noise complaints. Harassment allegations. Work calls. Wedding venue lies. He wasn't just wounded anymore. He was trying to punish me. Richard sounded exhausted beyond words. We're cutting him off financially until he gets help. I closed my eyes. Not satisfaction. Not victory. Just sadness. Deep sadness. Because somewhere along the way, the man I planned to marry had become someone vindictive enough to attack my stability because I refused to tolerate betrayal. I'm sorry, Richard repeated quietly. You didn't deserve any of this. No, I whispered. Then, after a pause, but maybe I needed to see all of it. Because the truth is, if Ryan had only cheated emotionally, part of me might have forgiven him. If he had only cried, apologized, and begged, I might have gone back. But watching him lie, manipulate, retaliate, and rewrite reality after getting caught, that killed the last illusion I still carried. And strangely, that became the thing that finally set me free. 5 weeks later, the silence finally returned. Not the tense silence that follows an argument. Not the aching silence of grief. Real silence. The kind where your nervous system stops bracing for the next phone call. The next accusation. The next unknown number lighting up your screen. It ended after my lawyer friend sent Ryan a formal cease and desist letter. $400. Worth every cent. The letter outlined everything. The false workplace complaint. The fake apartment reports. The harassment. The attempts to manipulate vendors and mutual friends. And most importantly, evidence. Screenshots. Dates. Messages. Proof destroys performance very quickly. After that, Ryan disappeared. No more calls. No more social media posts. No more mysterious numbers. Just quiet. The wedding refunds slowly came through afterward. Not all of them, but enough. The venue refunded most of the deposit. The photographer returned part of his fee after hearing the situation. I recovered almost $3,000 total. Not amazing considering how much weddings cost, but enough to soften the damage. The engagement ring situation became its own nightmare. Ryan still had it, technically. I'd left it on the restaurant table during the confrontation, and somewhere in the chaos afterward, he took it home. $4,200. One tiny diamond attached to 4 years of memories and one catastrophic lesson. I didn't even want the ring emotionally anymore. But legally, that was different. My lawyer friend explained the laws in our state over coffee one afternoon. If the engagement ends because of the recipient's misconduct, he said, the ring usually goes back to the giver. I almost laughed at the phrase misconduct. Such a clean, sterile word for emotional destruction. A formal demand letter was sent. Ryan resisted at first. Of course he did. Then Richard got involved. 3 days later, he called me personally. He'll return it. His voice carried the exhaustion of a father who had spent weeks dragging accountability out of his own child. We met at a small coffee shop downtown on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Richard arrived first. The ring box sat on the table between us. Closed. Simple. Final. For a strange moment, neither of us touched it. You okay? He asked quietly. The question surprised me. Not because it was kind. Because he genuinely meant it. I sat down slowly. Mostly. He nodded like he understood exactly what mostly meant. He pushed the box toward me. Ryan wanted to come himself. I looked down at the ring. No. He figured you'd say that. Outside, rain streaked softly against the windows. People hurried past, carrying umbrellas and coffees and ordinary lives. Meanwhile, mine still felt divided into before and after. How is he? I asked finally. Not romantically. Not hopefully. Just humanly. Richard leaned back with a tired sigh. Therapy twice a week. That startled me slightly. He actually went? He had a choice, Richard said bluntly. Therapy or lose every bit of support we were giving him. I looked at him carefully. You really cut him off? Richard gave a humorless smile. Claire, there's helping your child, and then there's enabling them into becoming a selfish adult who thinks consequences are optional. That landed heavily. He's living at home right now, Richard continued, working part-time while he figures himself out. I remembered Ryan once mocking ordinary jobs. Mocking stability. Mocking practical people. Funny how quickly arrogance collapses when fantasy disappears. Does he hate me? I asked quietly, before I could stop myself. Richard looked at me for a long moment. No, he said finally. Honestly, I think he hates himself. That answer hurt more than I expected, because hatred would have been easier, cleaner. Instead, I pictured Ryan sitting in his childhood bedroom, confronting the wreckage of his own decisions. And despite everything, part of me still felt sad for him. Richard seemed to read that on my face immediately. You're a good person, he said softly. Don't let this turn you hard. I swallowed against the sudden ache in my throat. I'm trying. He hesitated before adding, for what it's worth, he knows he lost someone good. I looked down at the ring box again. Too late for that realization. Yes, Richard admitted quietly. Usually is. After coffee, I took the ring to a jeweler. Sold it for $3,200. Less than it cost. But enough. Enough to close another chapter. The money went into savings at first. Then, eventually, into something else. A future fund. Not wedding. Not couple goals. Mine. I rearranged the apartment after that. Completely. Moved the couch. Changed the bedroom layout. Donated the expensive espresso machine Ryan loved. Bought plants. New blankets. Warmer lighting. Tiny things. But trauma lives in spaces. Sometimes healing has to live there too. My mother came over one Sunday, carrying takeout and grocery store flowers. She stopped in the middle of the living room and smiled. It feels like you again. That sentence nearly broke me. Because somewhere during those last months with Ryan, I had disappeared, quietly. Not dramatically. Just little compromises. Little self-doubts. Little attempts to become easier to love. I sat beside my mother on the couch later, eating pasta from containers while an old movie played in the background. Peaceful. Simple. Real. You know what's funny? She said suddenly. What? I almost feel sorry for him. I looked at her in surprise. She shrugged. Imagine throwing away a woman who loved you honestly because you got addicted to attention. I stared down at my food quietly. Because when she said it like that, it really did sound tragic. Not romantic tragic. Pathetic tragic. A man destroying his future, chasing validation from an illusion. A fake woman. A fantasy. An ego boost. Meanwhile, real love had been sitting beside him on the couch for 4 years, asking only for honesty. A few mutual friends reached out privately over the next weeks. Most said the same thing. Ryan had been complaining about me for months. Not viciously, at first. Just casually. About money. About ambition. About wanting more. Apparently, everyone thought it was normal relationship stress. Until the Tinder situation exposed how deep the resentment actually went. One friend admitted quietly, I think he liked being loved more than he liked loving someone back. That sentence stayed with me for days. Because it explained everything. Ryan loved admiration. Validation. Attention. The feeling of being wanted. But real relationships eventually require gratitude and loyalty more than excitement. And Ryan never fully grew into that part. I tried dating apps once after everything settled. Lasted 6 days. Deleted them on a Thursday night while laughing at the irony. The little swiping motion suddenly felt grotesque. Like shopping for temporary validation. Maybe someday I'd try again. But not yet. One evening, about 2 months after the restaurant confrontation, Richard invited me to dinner. Just me. At first, I almost declined. Then curiosity won. We met at a small Italian place, ironically less expensive than the restaurant where everything collapsed. Halfway through dinner, he looked at me carefully. You know, he said, most people would have gone nuclear. I raised an eyebrow. I publicly exposed him at dinner. Yes, Richard said, but you didn't post screenshots online. You didn't destroy his career intentionally. You didn't spend weeks trying to ruin him. I thought about that quietly, because there had absolutely been moments where rage tempted me. Moments I wanted everyone to know exactly who Ryan was. But in the end, I only wanted freedom, not revenge. I just wanted the truth acknowledged, I said finally. I spent weeks feeling crazy before I found proof. Richard nodded slowly. He said something interesting in therapy. That surprised me. What? He said the moment he saw you at that restaurant, he realized he never actually believed you'd leave him. I stared at my water glass silently, because hearing it again still hurt. Not for romantic reasons, for psychological ones. The entitlement inside that belief was staggering. Richard continued carefully. He said he thought you loved him enough to forgive anything eventually. A sad smile touched my mouth. I did, I admitted quietly. Until I didn't. Richard studied me for a moment. He underestimated your self-respect. Maybe. Or maybe I underestimated mine too. That was the uncomfortable truth healing eventually forced me to confront. Because before the fake profile, before the screenshots, before the restaurant, I had already been shrinking myself, trying to keep someone comfortable who was slowly disrespecting me. The betrayal didn't begin on Tinder. It began the moment Ryan started believing I would tolerate less than I deserved. And maybe I helped teach him that by tolerating too many smaller things first. By the time dessert arrived, I felt strangely lighter. Not because pain disappeared, because clarity finally had. When we said goodbye outside the restaurant, Richard hugged me tightly. You'll find someone better, he said. I smiled softly. Honestly, right now I'm just trying to find myself again. He nodded like that was the best answer I could have given. 2 days later, Ryan texted me from a new number. One final message. I really am sorry. I hope someday you can forgive me. I stared at it for a long time, then set the phone down without answering. Not because I hated him. Not because I wanted revenge. But because closure doesn't always require another conversation. Sometimes closure is simply recognizing there's nothing left worth explaining. I think about him less now. Sometimes entire days pass before he crosses my mind. That feels like progress. The apartment feels warm again. My savings account is growing. I started sleeping through the night. My mother still uses coupons at restaurants. Last week, we went to Olive Garden together and laughed so hard we cried when the waitress accidentally brought us 3 breadstick baskets instead of 1. And somewhere in the middle of all that ordinary happiness, I realized something important. Peace is not boring. Peace is priceless. Ryan spent so much time chasing excitement that he never recognized the value of stability until he destroyed it. That's his lesson now. Not mine. Mine was simpler. Love means nothing without respect. And self-respect sometimes looks like walking away from the person you wanted forever. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts.